What's up?
Hey.
See, I changed it up. I did what's up instead.
I'm pretty sure I've said hey before.
Come on. Get some new material.
Looks down at notes. It's just pages upon pages of hey, hello, hi.
Oh, well, speaking of new material, my dear, dear husband, I'm sorry, my darling, that you are always the start of the opener. You're the only other human I interact with, so
yeah,
deal with it. He recommended, he prefaced it properly. He's like, I want you to listen to this podcast. You're going to be so angry.
He wanted you to
why
hate
would I
listen
do that?
to a podcast.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. He's like, I just think you'd get a kick out of it, so listen to it.
Did you listen to it, hate it, and then of course go and like give it 1 star and say it's revisionist or something?
Oh man, I totally should have. Oh my God, I should have. Instead, I listened to it and just yelled to nobody in particular. And then I went upstairs. I got like halfway through and then I went upstairs and said, why did you make me do that?
That's what I learned is the right way to respond when you don't like a podcast. Through doing this podcast, I learned that apparently you're supposed to go and rate it poorly.
Yeah, I really should have. Anyway, the podcast in question is Bill Gates and Rashida Jones's new podcast.
Wow. Rashida Jones, like the actress?
Like the actress.
All right.
Apparently she went to Harvard, so she's
Okay.
like smart,
Yeah.
I guess. But it's just called Bill Gates and Rashida Jones Ask Big Questions.
All right.
I'm just going to tell you, I didn't even finish the first episode. I was just too angry. So this is a half review.
Do you have any gems from that experience?
Yeah, so this was their first one, and it was on, I'm lowering my glasses at you, inequality.
Ooh.
Let's let Bill Gates talk to me about inequality.
Inequality. Well, I mean, he's got half the conversation covered. He can tell us how the other half lives. The other
Right?
1% lives.
Oh, so like Rashida Jones, she plays the role basically of like kind of moderating and like she'll kind of set up the premise and stuff like that. From what I could tell, she's like, isn't it true that like we have a huge rate of inequality in this country and blah, blah, blah.
So she's the regular person,
She seems like the regular person.
right? Because
But then,
Bill Gates, I mean, he's not the regular person. He's the tech
I mean,
superlord.
if you can count like a super rich Hollywood actress as a regular person,
Right.
sure.
But that's what she's playing.
I guess, yeah. She's the every woman. So, sort of. Unfairly beautiful every woman. So she kind of sets that up, and he does this horrible thing where he's just like, yeah, there's some inequality, and just like he doesn't seem to account for any of the reasons why there's inequality.
Mhm.
And he doesn't think it's that bad,
Right.
from what I could tell. He was just like, yeah, it's not that bad. Like, consider it, like, our standard of living's pretty good,
Oh
blah,
my
blah.
God. He did the
And
Steven Pinker thing where he's like, yeah, but like in the Middle Ages, people died of the plague and stuff. You know, he did the,
No, the worst thing, the thing that, like, fucking sent me for, like, I don't even know. It blew my top.
yeah.
Was he said, we have free education.
What?
And I was like, I mean, kind of. It's very bad in a lot of places.
And even that, like, you're allowed to get for free, let's say, you're allowed to get for free the education needed for an entry-level job that you're going to pay bullshit at.
I know. And he got really pissed when Rashida asked about free college. He's like, why do you need college? I dropped out of college. And I was like, all right, buddy.
He's a rich kid.
Yeah. And then he said, like, why should we pay? He did the Pete Buttigieg, why should we pay for rich kids' college thing? And I was just like, shut the fuck up. Like, your little rinky-dink free education ain't helping people. Like,
yeah.
that is also unequal.
That's incredible.
Fucking go to hell.
We got free education, man. That's fine. Problem
Did you know
solved.
that our education's great?
Our education's great. It's free. It'll lift you completely out. Man, I am in this thing. And I like, there's one of the big things that we are measured on as schools is college readiness, because even the system itself, in measuring itself, its own metrics, knows that it's not sufficient to get people ready for making enough money to be comfortable in our system. Mm-hmm. You know?
Like it knows that it has to be a pipeline for people to get good jobs.
Yeah, like under what pretense can you possibly be like, oh, that's enough?
Yeah, I mean, it used to be enough, but it's just not anymore.
And I mean, I'm not saying everybody's got to go to college. I mean, you can do, all sorts of other pathways in terms of trade schools and stuff like that, but that also requires money, resources, stuff, that's not free.
Yeah, I think that's what makes me mad is that they get so cagey about free college, and then it's like, okay, what if you make like other forms of living like sustainable? And they're like, no, I don't want to do that either.
Yeah, well,
I just want poor people to suffer.
It cuts into their yacht money whenever they're having to pay for all that. So,
yeah, and they brought in some like expert. Again, I only listened half of it, and it was a week ago. Sorry, this is a very half-assed review. It's fine.
Yeah,
but they brought in this like expert on inequality, and this guy sounded like he kind of knew what he's talking about, but I was so angry from before that I just like couldn't really focus.
Do you remember his name?
Economist Raj Chetty. So he did research on opportunity in America. And I think he was saying some good stuff, like generally like people are less likely to succeed as much as their parents did and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. What was really gross to me is that Rashida was clearly trying to like humanize Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And like, she was like, what strikes me is how both you and Raj had these incredible mothers. Like, I wonder if that's the key. And I'm like, well, why are we talking about this? Like, I don't care about your mom.
That's the key insight we should draw from this, not a structural analysis of the privileges that he had and how he wrought that into even more wealth. No, that's not what we should look at here.
He had a good mommy. Let's put more blame on individual family like units. Yeah. That's always a good tactic. Anyway, don't bother. You can listen to it if you want, but don't.
1 star. 1 star. No class analysis.
Yeah, that's what I should say. 1 star, capitalist revisionist.
Where are the dialectics?
Shit. I hated it because it was so fake woke.
It was trying to, is that woke to talk to Bill Gates?
No, but Rashida was like, well, I consider myself the American dream because like I come from, people who were once slaves and stuff like that. And I'm like,
right.
That's great. But like, you want to analyze how you got there, right. And like Bill Gates did not do that. So you don't get to make up for his shittiness.
Right. So kind of using that as cover for the whole, the rest of the project.
And of course, Bill Gates has this big, like, he's big into development in other countries. So he thinks he's fucking a saint or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Because he gives a slim portion of his
pittance
wealth away. Even if he gives away half, there's still a big fucking chunk there that he could give away.
Yeah. That's the thing. And also, it's so you can avoid taxes. So.
That too. And it's so that he can give it away and choose to and choose not to, rather than someone choosing that for him.
Yeah. Not an excuse. Okay. You want to get to our chunk? Our main course?
Let's do this. I
don't know why I called it a chunk. Okay. Let's dive in. So we got an email a while back from a listener in India named Adarsh. And he told us all about his cool home state of Kerala.
Ooh, all right.
So he basically said that they have a long history of like communist and leftist movements and just how they're doing really well compared to the rest of India. And even compared to some parts of the US, like they're doing pretty good.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I did a little research project and I found some cool stuff and I just want to go over it with you.
Dude, yeah, let's do that. All right. Kerala, your presentation. Here you go. You'll be judged according to the rubric here.
Okay. Oh.
Go ahead and begin when you're ready.
No, I'm nervous. I actually was nervous. I had to go over my notes yesterday because I was like, shit. I wrote, like when you write notes when you're researching, they make no sense. You're just typing.
Yeah. You're just throwing it all together and then you're like, what? What was that?
Yeah, like a fugue state. So yeah, I'm glad I like practiced while I was doing the dishes yesterday. So nice. Here we go.
All right.
All right. So I want to give some background into pre-independence India and kind of how they first started to interact with communism.
Okay.
So basically, a lot of people were into communism whenever it first like hit the scene.
In India?
In India, yeah.
That's cool.
So people would like travel to Moscow.
Uh-huh.
People admired Lenin, and they were basically just like really into this whole revolutionary idea.
Okay, so this is in the early 1900s then we're talking?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
As you can imagine, the British did not like that.
They didn't like a little bit of camaraderie, shall we say?
I mean, they did not.
No.
They were still like ruling India. So, when you have people being revolutionary, that ain't gonna fly.
Well, by the 1900s, they had their own labor MPs. They should have been like, this is fine, right? It's fine for us. It's fine for them. A little bit of socialism.
So when did India get independence? I don't know anything.
India gets independence officially in 1947.
Jeez, it's so late.
Yeah, it's
like, that's insane.
It's in the Indian Independence Act of 1947. That's when they officially, it's August 15th of that year that they become the Dominion of India. Technically, they're still at that time a Commonwealth nation.
Okay.
But then later on,
is Canada still a Commonwealth nation? I know they still like England. I know they're still buds.
Yeah, they're still a Commonwealth realm. But India is no longer that. They changed that in 1950. They became the Republic of India and cut all ties, sort of thing. I mean, they're still like friends, but they're not like
subjugated.
Yeah.
Yeah, important distinction. So this is back when they totally were subjugated, and British rule did whatever they could to stomp out these commies. So they did your classic anti-communist propaganda. They would check imports for any Marxist literature people were bringing in.
Oh,
so,
man.
None of that.
You lose your bookmark and everything.
I know, right? They would ban all communist activity, actually. They just straight up banned communism.
Man,
so
the parties, the meetings, everything.
Yeah, so a lot of these early communist parties were really secretive and like unorganized because they were, underground basically.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing they did, at least, I mean, this seemed like a big deal to me, they issued what's called a fatwa.
Ooh.
I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but a fatwa is basically like a non-binding legal opinion on Islamic law. So as someone who's raised Catholic, I would equate it to like the Pope saying like an opinion and being, making kind of a proclamation.
Saying, yeah, we're doing this now. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're usually used to advise courts, elaborate on laws and how it relates to like Islamic law, comment on like doctrines, policies, grievances, stuff like that. So yeah, this fatwa was basically urging Muslims to reject communism.
All right.
Because apparently at the time, a lot of Muslims were like traveling and like they were coming back because they would also often visit like Soviet countries and then they would come back and be like, oh yeah, communism, that was cool.
So when they were traveling through Soviet controlled areas. So this is post 1917 sometime. Okay, cool. But well, not cool in the eyes of the religious authorities.
Not cool for the Brits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously, communism often goes hand in hand with anti-imperialism. So British people were quite scared. There's also rapid industrialization at that time. So you had a lot of people being like, what are we doing here? And you also had this huge workforce that basically were just farming for a landed gentry. Like it was basically kind of serf-like in a lot of ways. So you really had all the conditions for people to start thinking like in a leftist fashion.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess adding in that anti-imperial dimension, makes it extra volatile, I guess, or ripe for some sort of a revolutionary movement.
Yeah, so like a lot of these early parties were involved in the independence movement, as far as I could tell, and they were often founded before independence. So
yeah,
pretty cool.
Awesome.
Overall, in India, it seems like there is a strong current of socialism in mainstream Indian politics. Like, we'll kind of get to this later, but it just seems like even their kind of regular left party is still pretty left.
Yeah.
It made me quite jealous. So that's pretty cool. You had some recessions in the 70s that caused a little bit of reactionary to that, but overall, a lot better. So, yeah.
Cool.
So let's get to Kerala specifically.
Okay.
And Kerala is like basically the very southwest tip of India. And it was formed by the States Reorganization Act on November 1st, 1956. From what I read, I think you did a little more reading on this than I did. basically once India got independence, there was kind of some shuffling and shifting of state lines. Is that correct?
Yeah. So once they get independence, right, you have two countries at that point, sort of. You've got the Dominion of India. You've got the Dominion of Pakistan, which is East and West Pakistan, which West Pakistan is now modern day Pakistan normal, and East Pakistan is now Bangladesh.
Okay, yeah.
Which that doesn't happen until 1971 that they break away. And then both, there's also these regions called princely states.
Yeah, I read about that.
And they were always kingdoms, sort of, that the British had kind of like let happen, but answer to them. So
yeah, they're basically like puppets.
Yeah, and the princely states were allowed to kind of pick whatever side they wanted. They were kind of prodded into picking whichever side, most people were wanting to go for. And then you also had a few like city-state style things, holdovers from like the Portuguese, the French still had control of these various cities that eventually were absorbed into India. And then, like in 1950, India cuts its ties. In 1956, Pakistan becomes the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. And then it's 1971 where East Pakistan secedes and becomes Bangladesh instead.
Okay.
But to go back to what you were initially asking about, the States Reorganization Act of 1956 comes about kind of because those princely states were brought back into India, and people were kind of agitating like, oh, we want states to be along linguistic lines, and they decided, no, we're not going to do that exactly. But they did put together a commission, the States Reorganization Commission, to try to figure out, okay, what were we going to do? How were we going to reorganize the states? And so that's, again, like you said, in 1956, they change a bunch of the state territories, like their borders, and combine different ones with each other. And so that's where you get Kerala. It was formed by the merger of Travancore Cochin State with the Malabar District and Kasaragod Taluk of South Kanara District of the Madras Presidency. And then they took a portion of it and transferred it to the Madras State. So that's what you were talking about there with the state borders changing up.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. It was confusing reading about that. I was like, I just need someone to interpret this for me.
Yeah.
So they became a state in 1956. The next year, 1957, EMS Namboodiripad was elected to serve as the first chief minister of Kerala.
All right.
This guy's really cool.
Tell me about him.
Spoiler alert. So his kind of background, he, in 1934, founded the Congress Socialist Party, which was a wing of the Indian National Congress. Now, the Indian National Congress is not like their Congress like we have in the States.
Right.
It's a party, part of their parliament. So that confused me for a very long time. So just a heads up. So I would liken them to like if Democrats were actually cool.
Yeah. Is that the Indian National Congress, like from back in the day, the one from pre-independence, like that? Mm-hmm. The guys who were, okay. All right. Gotcha. So and another parallel is like the African National Congress in South Africa, the ANC, like it's a political party, not their body.
Yeah.
Okay. To Americans, that's weird, I guess.
Confusingly titled to Americans, yeah. But, so this was a pretty big tent party, the CSP, Congress Socialist Party.
Okay. It
included people who were like, yeah, revolution, let's do it. It also had a lot of people that were very into nonviolence. So those guys kind of fought. So you also had Democratic Socialists and Social Democrats. So big old tent.
So it's like the DSA kind of, but actually a political party.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
They even worked with the Communist Party of India, so like very big.
All right.
But their platform was very cool. They were for decentralized socialism.
Okay.
So that meant co-ops, trade unions, supporting independent farmers, basically taking a lot of the power from central government and giving it back more to local authorities. So
like libertarian socialists or like anarcho-communist leaning sort of things?
I think they had some ANCOM leanings, if I understood correctly. I think you really see that in Kerala too, because it was so local based, you know.
Awesome.
They were also secularists. They were all just about class solidarity, because especially when you have a really rigid caste system, that's a big deal.
And a big religious divide in the country overall, right? You know?
Yes.
How else are you
definitely.
going to appeal to all these groups if you're saying, oh, we're going to try to govern for Hindus or for Muslims?
Yeah, which is a lot of the problem that's going on today in India.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, with this party, there's a lot of fracturing. Happens when you got a big tent like that. You know, we're all shocked.
You get 6 leftists in a room, you've got 18 different tendencies, man.
Yeah. And it's interesting. There are like still a ton of these communist parties out there. Like basically use our name generator and throw India in there too, and you'll get some.
Awesome.
So that was kind of like his start with socialism, or like as far as actual governing.
Mm-hmm.
But when he gets elected to chief minister, he starts out with some pretty bold plans.
What's he do?
So because they were democratically elected, I think it kind of made them want to be popular, and like they really wanted to continue winning elections instead of like having to hunker down and use some violence, you know?
Yeah.
So I think in terms of that, I think it might have colored a little bit of their platform. They wanted to make sure that things would actually pass and be popular and stuff like that.
Okay.
That being said, they still did some cool shit. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
All right. So first you have the Land Reforms Ordinance.
All right.
This one had like multiple versions of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like they tried to introduce it right after they got elected. And then they ended up passing an agrarian relations bill in 1958. And a lot of the amendments like had some of that original stuff from the 1957 version, because that big one didn't end up passing. But they found it in other ways, if that makes sense.
So they kind of start the ball rolling in 57 and then kind of like add on to it. Mm-hmm, okay. Mm-hmm. What does it do?
So basically got rid of feudalism. Pretty big deal.
Yes. I'm a big opponent of feudalism, so I like that.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about those like princely Rajas and stuff, but basically you had a lot of holdover from the Raj system. Is that what you would call it, a system?
Well, the Raj, the British Raj, I guess, right, would be the overall, like, the Indian, like, subcontinent as it was governed by Britain. I guess you'd call that just, the princely states, though, like their realm or whatever.
Okay. So the way that worked, though, is basically you had these really wealthy landowners and really poor tenants, and they didn't have many rights at all.
Yeah. Like you said, they were just serfs, basically.
Basically, yeah. They were allowed to live there and work the land and not much else.
Mm-hmm.
So they put a ceiling on how much land someone can own. I love when people do that.
It was
it's one of my faves.
Who else did it? Cuba, right? They did that.
Cuba did that.
We were giving them the thumbs up, man. That's good.
Still into it. And what was great with this excess land, you had the tenants and people who were just like living in huts and stuff nearby could get that excess land.
Oh, cool.
They got dibs.
They just redistributed it.
Basically, yes, redistributed some land.
Good.
They improved wages, working conditions, secured employment, and tenant rights. So, big fucking deal.
Good things all across the board.
Yeah. Again, this was kind of a series of bills. Like, it wasn't just like one big bill, I think. I think it was just like...
The cool
It was
law.
a platform. The awesome law. So, yeah, what was interesting, it sounded like they didn't want to go straight to like state ownership or collectives, because EMS didn't think that would actually help the peasantry, that it was just like, it sounded good in theory.
Mm-hmm.
So they went with more of like the reform mind, but like these are very good reforms, especially when you're considering you're going from literal fucking serfdom. So like, that's a big leap.
And like you mentioned, it's interesting to me that it's so decentralized, because like there's no, like you said, there's no collectivizing really or anything that could even be framed as the government is taking this for itself and away from you, and you're not going to have the things, it's like, nah, dude, here's some more pay, here's some land, here's some cool stuff, like.
Yeah, I think that's a theme in this of basically, like, I thought a lot about the party line, because it seems like they were really in tune with what the people needed and just like provided that.
Awesome.
Next big platform I want to get into was the education bill. Again, this one actually failed to pass, but lots of the provisions were still enacted through like various amendments of following bills.
Okay.
But this one also very cool. So what you had was a lot of schools, like 40% of students were enrolled in private institutions, mostly religious institutions, Christian schools, Catholic schools, Christian and Catholic are the same thing, but whatever. The Nair Service Society, which is, Nair is like a caste, but their service society basically like looks out for that like kind of group of people.
Okay.
So this bill, it stood to get rid of malpractice in these private institutions, standardize the syllabus, looking to standardize appointments of teachers, paying teachers through the treasury instead of these institutions. So they kind of were like taking over some bits of that, like you were talking about. Like this is kind of more the state taking over. And then actually taking over management. So yeah, so they kind of did that with the schools.
Yeah. Were they? I mean, but did they meet with a lot of opposition in doing that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. This is where the the claws come out.
Yeah. So people were really fucking pissed about this, particularly the Catholics and the Nair Society.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court upheld the law, though, and the president of India didn't veto it, but it ended up not passing. But they still enacted a lot of these policies. And that brings us to the opposition movement.
The opposition to them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Tell me about these guys.
Well, it's unfortunately named the Liberation Struggle. Okay.
Please.
This was a coalition of Catholics, the Nair, various political opposition parties who just wanted their seats back, and our good recurring characters on this podcast. You want to take a guess?
The CIA?
Mm-hmm.
What? Seriously?
Yeah.
What did they like? Did they make up a party and put it in there? Were they totally not a CIA front party?
Don't worry about it. Definitely real Indians party.
Yeah.
No, you had some declassified documents that basically said, according to a former U.S. ambassador, quote, the election results rang alarm bells in Washington.
And so they started to play a role.
Yeah, they sent funding, it looks like, was their big thing. Mm-hmm. According to those documents, they wanted to, quote, prevent additional Keralas, which became an important argument for augmenting U.S. assistance to India.
You know, that's crazy. And we've talked about it on the show before, but like the mental, like where do you have to be to both oppose communism, but also fear that if it gets put into practice someplace, it's going to become so popular that it's going to spread all over.
Dude, yeah. Have you seen that meme about like British teachers are banned from talking about communism?
No, I didn't see that.
There's a meme of that, and it's just like, well, then why? Like, are you scared that it's going to be popular? Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, that's wild. One thing I did want to add, obviously, we think the CIA, last time we gave a big middle finger to the FBI. CIA, enjoy one too.
Yeah, here you go.
But I don't know. I don't want to necessarily, some people in those other groups and stuff, like they probably thought they were doing the right thing, or they were just very religious and something, and they were scared of what communism would bring. But obviously there are probably shitty people who were like, oh, I just got my land taken away, I want it back, I want to be a feudal lord again. But
yeah, there are definitely those. And I think the religious thing, they were just so used to being able to do whatever they want in those schools.
We just shouldn't pay. Not everybody there was like CIA puppet, but obviously.
Yeah.
The CIA was messing things up as always.
Yeah. They had their finger in the pie. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Maybe not. I said it and then it sounded very sexual, so I don't know. Okay, anyway. So, opposition movement, quote unquote, liberation struggle. You started out with mostly peaceful demonstrations, but then didn't turn out great. June 13th, 1959, the Angamali police fired at protesters who were marching towards the police station, killing 7 and injuring several. There are mixed reports on this.
Is this the police? Is this under the leadership of the Kerala government, or is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So I could not find good sources on this. Listeners, as you know, we use Wikipedia religiously. This was one of those that was like, hey, this one's not cited well.
Yeah.
And even just reading it, it was like, in cold blood, they shot down these innocent people. And I'm like, maybe they did, but do you need all those adjectives, So immediately my flag was like, peaked.
Right, yeah.
And so I did a big Google, tried to track down more sources. I thought I had one at one point, turned out to be a novel, so I had to backtrack. The only other ones I could find, there was one on like a Catholic website, so like obviously we know which side they were on. So I couldn't find anything that was like a little more neutral about it. At the end of the day, obviously, like, fuck police and fuck police violence.
Yeah.
There were some people that said the police were forced to fire because the mob was violent. But again, like, you shouldn't shoot at people. So, like, that's not a good excuse.
That's true, man. They're over there in France now. They're like throwing freaking bombs at, not real bombs, but like they're, throwing all sorts of crap, bricks and everything at the police, and they're just hiding back there with their riot shields. Like they actually, are sufficiently cowed by their people that they're not going to go and mow them down like we do over here.
France cracks me up. They don't take fucking shit. I
No,
love it.
they don't, dude. They go to battle.
Oh, sounds cool. Sounds terrifying and cool.
It's a country with a legacy of making leaders' heads roll. They act a little differently.
Dude, right? That'd be so badass.
Yeah. Parody redacted, but
Yeah. So yeah, you had this, and this really obviously pissed a lot of people off. They had these dead people. I think there was like,
well, we want to say that was not.
Yeah, we don't endorse that.
That was bad.
For sure.
That was bad.
So this led to the central government doing something really shitty. They basically dismissed the entire government of Kerala.
So the Indian government?
The Indian government.
Was just like,
you
guys suck?
Yeah.
Did this have new elections, or how did they do that?
So what they can do, it's called Article 356 of the Indian Constitution. It's called the President's Rule. They can just like dissolve a state government if they're unable to function according to the Constitution.
Wow.
This is a thing they did a little too often for my taste, according to my reading. It was often just used to be like, nah, I don't like what you're doing. Stop. So that seems crazy, Can you imagine if someone came in and was just like, Texas, you're done here. I mean, I'd love it right now because we need to be done here. But,
yeah, maybe.
But like, that's crazy. Like that's pretty nuts. I have not.
So
heard
here's
of
the crazy thing. Obviously in the United States is a different setup in that the states it's a federal system, right? So the states kind of have a lot of their own power. Mm-hmm. But within the state level, cities, municipal, any of that stuff's straight up created by the state governments. And so Texas could play India and do that to different city governments.
They could come to Dallas and be like, stop it. Stop your mask ordinance.
Yeah, they could just be like, you are out. Like in Florida, for example, the guy there delivered he made a like anti-mask ordinance thing. Like
what does that mean? You can't wear a mask?
No, local places can't make mask ordinances or something. Like states are way more powerful than the city. The cities get all of their powers from the states that they're in. So it just reminded me of that, from an American standpoint.
Just like a different level. So they did that. It sucked. The next election, the communists lost a lot of their seats. And then you get some good old classic fracturing within the communist parties. They split in 1964. It's the classic revolution versus electoralism. You know how that goes. Split into the Communist Party of India and the Communist Party Marxist. EMS ended up going with the Marxist, just as a note.
Okay. What year was that again?
That was 1964, so that was a little later.
Okay.
So they split up and, politics continue. But like I said earlier, even kind of their centrists were still pretty left. There's an Indira Gandhi quote that I thought was really interesting. She was in an interview and someone asked, basically, are you a socialist? And her quote was, I suppose you could call me a socialist, but you have to understand what we mean by that term. We use the word because it came closest to what we wanted to do here, which is to eradicate poverty. You can call it socialism, but if by using that word we arouse controversy, I don't see why we should use it. I don't believe in words at all. End quote. That's a hilarious sentence. I don't believe in words at all.
I don't believe in words at all.
Fuck words. I thought that was really interesting. I was reading about Indira Gandhi and it seems like she was kind of a controversial figure. Obviously people on the right didn't like her, but people on the left would be like, oh, she's not left enough. She's, obviously saying that she's not a socialist, but and then, I don't know, there's also some commentary and no, she's just Machiavellian out for herself. And I'm like, that kind of raised the back of my neck hairs a little bit too.
Why?
Because she's a woman.
People are just, he is a remarkable, negotiate, shrewd, backroom, gets things done.
Knows how to get things done.
Yeah. That's for the guy.
Yeah. And then this one is, I don't trust her. She must be lying. But anyway, I thought that was a really interesting quote because it gets to like the root, I think, of socialism and left movements is they wanted to get rid of poverty and this was the way to do it. It's almost like, maybe socialism's good for that.
Yeah. It's like when you were just talking about the Kerala thing and how the Kerala government, how they had, they were democratically elected and how they had to try to do things to keep, the popular will. So they were doing nice shit for people.
Yeah. And like, we're going to get to how some of those things turned out, like stats wise, pretty good, gotta say.
Yeah.
So I want to wrap up kind of our overview section here. They are still, here are kind of the main parties in India now. You've got the Left Democratic Front, LDF. This is communist led. Awesome. Still a pretty big party.
All right.
Then you have the United Democratic Front, UDF. This is kind of the successor of the Indian National Congress. So,
pause button. Imagine. Sitting in Congress today.
Will the communist chairperson stand up?
Yeah, we had the Democratic Party, doing their thing, and you're probably about to introduce another party that is would be their analog, actually. Then you have like the socialists, and then you actually have straight up communists sitting there.
It's amazing. Well, the next party, unfortunately, I'm going to introduce is the Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP. This one is unfortunately gone up in prevalence because that's their Prime Minister, Modi. And they are Hindu nationalists. Not great.
No, yeah, not great. We have our version of that.
Yeah.
Here.
Crazy. That's the thing that catches on. That's what we need to start banning. That's the one that spreads like wildfire. Fucking
Teachers
fascism.
should not be able to teach about. Yeah.
About fascism.
Yeah. Don't mention it.
What's interesting, our listener Adarsh says that the BJP seems to have a much weaker presence in Kerala, so that's good.
Mm-hmm. Hey,
Seems like they can't
Keeping
get far
the
in there.
faith.
Yeah. So I want to talk some about how Kerala did as a state government and like their achievements, and even past like their actual communist rule, like when they were still pretty left.
Yeah.
And just like, how fucking cool. They did some cool shit.
And remind us, they're coming from, like you said, a feudalist pretty much conditions. It's not like they were, this was where all the diamonds were, and they just
no.
It's not a petrostate or anything. It's just It's
kind of the opposite. So there's something called the Kerala model, actually, which is based on studies in the 1970s from the Center for Development Studies, which I think was based in Kerala, and they partnered with the UN to do these studies on like their what's called HDI, Human Development Index.
Yeah.
This is nuts. So the Kerala model is the idea that instead of focusing on high GDP growth rates, which is what most countries do when they say, we got to get better, we need more shit.
Yeah.
Instead of that, they just didn't do that. And they instead focused on high quality of life, wealth/resource redistribution, and high levels of political participation.
Yes, please. Can we start a Kerala model party and
I
just
would
do
love
that?
it. It's amazing.
Okay, it drives you crazy too, right? It drives so many of our listeners, I'm sure, drives y'all crazy to hear, stock market's doing this. Oh, great. The economy is doing this,
Yeah, this nebulous
GDP
thing.
is going up this year. GDP will be down this, whatever. It's just like, okay.
What the fuck does that mean to me? But people love to say that it affects you. It's like, no, it does. Like, that determines how much they'll be able to invest and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, this is just fun money for them.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess it can, it affects you, but it only affects you shittily. Like, it only affects you when it gets bad enough and they're like, fine, you're fired. Like, it doesn't, they're not like, oh, gee, the stock market went up. I can't wait to pay my workers more.
Yeah, it never fucking happens that way. And like, I've seen so many tweets along the same line of like, look, this pandemic is proving they don't need like people to do well in order for them to do well, like economically. They just don't. In fact, it's better if we don't do well.
Yeah. I mean, everything I was following was like scared and kind of like laughing because they were scared, sort of like, oh man, the economy's falling off a cliff. Damn, here it all goes. And then at some point, they just took the line that was going down, pulled that up from reality and just said it's going up anyway.
It's just fake. It's all fake.
Yeah.
Makes me so mad.
Anyway, Kerala model is not focusing on what's fake, but what's real. Tell us some more about what they're doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love it because you set it up so nicely. This is all despite a very low income. The average like per capita income in Kerala is 3,200 USD a year.
Wow. Okay.
And this is a small state. It has roughly the population of California inside the size of a state that's like roughly the size of Maryland.
Wow. Okay. So pretty crowded then? Would that end up being? I know California has a lot of rural area maybe.
That's true. But they have big population centers.
Yeah.
So
fairly densely populated,
dense.
probably. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just really interesting. They just instead invested in all this shit for the people, and it worked out really well. Like in terms of, like, let's just start with healthcare. They built a shit ton of hospitals, basically. They're just like, let's do this. They built a huge statewide infrastructure. Their life expectancy is 75. Would you like to guess the life expectancy for the United States?
Well, just on average overall?
Yeah, average overall.
73.
It's actually 78, so we won a little bit. India's is 69, though.
India's overall would be
69,
and then theirs is
75.
75. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. They also have really good palliative care.
Mm-hmm.
So Kerala has 3% of India's population and provides 2/3 of palliative care services in India.
Whoa.
It's insane. So they like are a front runner in like end of life care.
This sounds like to me like you're describing some sort of a boutique medical clinic thing here or something. Or you're describing like the statistics of, some New England rich person enclave compared to the United States,
Honestly, yeah, it's pretty nuts. So they do still have some issues. They have a slightly higher morbidity rate than other states. I think this is due to mostly diseases. Like there's still like a pretty big prevalence of like waterborne diseases.
Okay.
They have a slightly low birth weight, 13%.
All right.
So not great. But their infant mortality in 2011 was 12 per thousand, and most low-income countries are 91 per thousand.
Man, they're way below that then, especially given the income they have. Do you know the United States' ballpark of that?
Infant mortality? Probably
not
great.
From my understanding, we're not great at infant mortality.
Definitely not if you're black. Let's see. 5.7 deaths per thousand. So pretty good.
So we're, yeah.
India's 28.3. 28! And Kerala's only 12. That's for India.
Wow, yeah. And this is what, per 1,000?
Per 1,000.
Yeah. Non-Hispanic black in the United States is 11.
Jesus. So next I want to talk about education. I think you're going to enjoy this section. So,
all right.
First they had, in 1947, they founded something called the library movement. I love that.
I love libraries, yeah. So that's one thing I was thinking of just the other day was I miss just going to a library.
Me too.
I know you could probably do it socially distant, but like you're touching all the books and everything. I'm like, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah. But this program formed over 6,000 libraries.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So that's huge.
And the state did that.
The state did that.
See, we did, a lot of libraries or something, but that was all philanthropy, the Carnegie libraries that he put up everywhere. That's the only way we could do it in the United States.
All right. I think you'll really enjoy this one. It has good aesthetics for one. 1962, they founded the People's Science Movement.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Communist science.
It started as just like focusing on publishing science, but they ended up changing their goals, and like their motto is now science for social revolution.
Hell yeah. That's
a great motto. So some of their goals, I grabbed this from their website and I just wanted to read them because they're good goals. So,
all right, let's hear it.
Popularize science and scientific outlook among the people.
Okay.
Develop a sense of optimism. Instill in the people a sense of self-confidence that they can change the world and can build a better tomorrow.
That's so very hopeful.
Good. I know.
Kind of propaganda-y, but I mean, in a good way.
Expose and oppose the abuse of scientific knowledge detrimental to the interests of the majority. I thought that was interesting. Like, not all science is probably good,
True. Race science, for example.
That's a bad one. Expose and oppose the abuse of the environment. propose and help implement alternative modes for development with emphasis on equity and sustainability, and carry out R&D work to transform lab technologies into mass technologies. I like that one too.
Yeah, that's important because great, you came up with a jetpack. I mean, that, is handy for just a very few people. Why would we roll that out to everyone? Sometimes the cool scientific discoveries are like, neat, that's going to be some rich person's plaything, and that's it.
Yeah, like cool Hadron Collider. Can I have healthcare?
Yeah.
Science is important for science's sake, but also like we have other things to do. So I also want to talk about their literacy programs. So in the 1980s, they had this program where 50,000 volunteers tracked down 175,000 illiterate people between 5 and 60 years old and taught them to read.
Awesome. Echoes of Cuba over here.
Yeah, I was reminded about it a lot. What was interesting, so the People's Science Movement also sent like 20,000 volunteer tutors, and they also collected donated glasses and would like match them with people. So like they would train themselves. They got trained to match prescriptions for people who couldn't see, which I thought that was nice.
Awesome, yeah.
The total cost of this literacy program, $26 per person.
That's awesome. You got all those volunteers. All you have to do is pay to train them how to do it, give them the physical materials, and send them out.
Yeah. The coolest thing about this is my favorite part. You got all these newly literate people. Do you know what they turn around and do?
Vote communist.
They started writing letters demanding roads and hospitals.
Hell yeah. Awesome.
That's what you get when you teach people things. They're like, oh, I deserve better than this.
Yeah, and they feel like they can express that. They have the capability of doing so. And they've just also, been reached by a government that cared enough to go try to reach them, that, hey, maybe they care enough to fix this road over here.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
today they have basically 100% literacy. It's also almost equally distributed across sexes, which is a big deal. The rural-urban difference is also a lot lower than the rest of India. So basically saying the level of inequality on education is lower. So that's good.
That's crazy. Then those are big deals.
For sure. Which brings us to our next topic of gender.
All right. Yeah.
So Kerala has a tradition of matrilineal inheritance. So I think that kind of plays a little bit into this, just generally treating women better. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the state also really did not leave women out, which was great. So they have very high female literacy, education, work participation, and life expectancy, which is a big deal. The birth rate is 40% lower than the national average. And it's 60% below similar poor countries.
A good thing, right?
Very good thing.
Okay.
That's good. So
that wouldn't be a good thing in Japan or something.
No,
Europe,
they need those.
Yeah.
No, this is very good. It ends up, really paying off for women.
Yeah.
What's interesting though, so India had they looked at China freaking out about their population in the 70s, and they're like, oh, we should do that too, which is not great, as we learned from that segment.
Mm-hmm.
So what they ended up doing, India as a whole started withholding licenses for business licenses, driver's licenses, permits for irrigation or fucking food rations, unless you would get sterilized or,
Whoa.
get IUDs and stuff. Or they would just, round up quote unquote volunteers.
Damn, that's bad.
Very bad.
So you're saying India is the country did that? Or
the country
Kerala did that?
The country did that. Kerala has a low birth rate and they didn't use coercion.
So they didn't have to, they were just nah, we're good. We didn't have to do that.
They didn't. So the reason that it worked for them is because they had all these literate women. That was huge. Women also had a later marriage age, which tends to reduce the number of children. So they got married at 22 instead of 18, which sounds very young to Americans, but still, big deal.
Yeah. And you mentioned this, is it stems from this tradition of the property relations, right? Of, as we've mentioned before, kind of the economic base of that, of the relationship of women and men in terms of material wealth, that influenced, how the overall, cultural, I guess the gender dynamics there,
For sure. And another stat I found is that their sex ratio trends towards what's considered normal, which you have more women than men. And in places where, like China, where you have a lot of female infanticide, obviously that rate is different. And so it's a really good sign they didn't have that problem.
Yeah.
At least in Kerala.
That's awesome.
My favorite detail, the state put up dispensaries every few kilometers with IUDs and other birth control.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is day one Christine presidency shit right here.
That is awesome.
Ice cream truck brigades, but it's birth control.
That is cool. Like that they have that sort of an infrastructure, right? Again, not in some sort of super rich enclave or anything like that, but like in a normal place with normal people, not even crazy amount of resources or anything. They prioritize that though. It reminded me of something recently that the Scottish Parliament did. They voted unanimously to make free period products available in any.
I saw that.
Yeah, in any public building or whatever. I was like, that's
amazing.
That's good. We should do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's something that we can do, that any place can do. Again, the question is if they prioritize it or not.
Yeah, yeah. They also had a state-supported nutrition program for pregnant women and new mothers. So that's cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah. Next, I want to talk about queer issues. You know I'm always going to bring up my people.
Hell yeah.
So nationally, just a little background, homosexuality is no longer illegal in India, but same-sex unions are still not recognized. So that sucks.
Okay.
In 2014 in India, like nationally, there is now an option for people to use third gender on forms instead of male or female. This was changed to transgender in 2019, which like to me is confusing because I'm like, well, you can be trans and be a man or a woman.
Yeah.
So whatever. But in Kerala in 2016, they started offering free gender-affirming surgery.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's huge.
Awesome.
They also have employment and skill training for the trans community, which, you know, as we mentioned, is a very chronically under and unemployed group.
Mm-hmm.
And they have something which I just love the name of. It's called the Gender Park.
Dude.
Let's all go to the Gender Park.
Yeah.
It's basically a campus devoted to studying gender justice, equality, and policy. So, pretty cool.
All right. Awesome.
Let's see. I also want to talk about employment. So, Kerala's employment or unemployment is 9.4%. India's is 6.1%. So, they're a little bit more unemployed. This is from 2019.
Yeah, that's true.
Pandemic rates are insane. If it's from 2020, it's like 25%. And it's like, well, yeah, that's what happens.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
So it seems like what happens is because there's such a strong like union presence in a lot of these places, they'll be demanding raises and such. Factories will go to more oppressed areas in India and just set up shop there. So that sucks.
Yeah, that's true. But in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, you know, they have great strides there. And you said overall their human development index was just like it was high?
Yeah. Overall, like the rest of their stats are pretty good. So it's like, okay, I mean,
they probably have some sort of system where even if you're unemployed, you're kind of all right. It seems like.
I would assume. I mean, just based on everything else, it seems like they would provide for that. But I mean, even just fucking healthcare. At least you're not dying from that. You know, like that's magic.
Yeah. These unemployed people, by the way, you know, they haven't lost their healthcare like people here would. So
yeah, they also have a very large budget deficit, which brings me to my stupid question of the day. Okay. Can you explain deficits to me?
Budget deficits?
Is it just when you owe money?
It's when you spend more money that year than you take in.
Okay. What's the difference between that and a debt?
So a debt is the total amount of times you've done that. So like the United States nowadays we'll run $1 trillion deficit. And it used to be like, oh man, we ran a $300 billion deficit. We can't keep doing that.
That's cute.
Now we run $1 trillion deficits and we're like, crazy year. And honestly, this year, I mean, sure. That's your annual thing. That's just like, well, we didn't want to tax the millionaires, but we wanted new tanks and new F-35. So that's what we spent this year. Okay. Enough years doing that, or however many years doing that, you just take that money that you owed. You borrow it, right? You're borrowing that from yourself. From you just.
This is insane.
You're creating that money by adding zeros on the bank ledgers from the Federal Reserve is just putting that money. into there. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yes. That is added to this bigger number that we owe, which is all the past times that we've done that.
Okay. Got it.
That number is, whatever a country's debt is substantially higher than their deficit.
Okay. Got it.
Like our debt, for example, is currently 27 trillion.
That's a lot of trillions.
Which you just can't, you can't do. Like,
that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, that will never be paid back. Or
it's just not a thing.
Federal budget deficit. Okay, I'll just explain how crazy 2020 is. 2019's was 984 billion. All right.
Okay, that's a lot.
Pretty close to the $1 trillion mark there.
How do we do this here?
2020, all-time high, 3 trillion.
Jesus Christ.
But you're all of a sudden paying a whole bunch of unemployment checks. You're all of a sudden not getting a bunch of taxes. So it makes sense. But, and we shouldn't deficit hawk or anything like that. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I was annoyed by that comment when I was reading about it because I was like, who cares? They're taking care of their people. Like, that's what you should spend money on. Yeah.
And honestly, a good government's going to run deficits when it needs to. That's it's powerful enough to do that. Maybe not at the state level. It's kind of limited in comparison. Hell, we were just talking about how the national government can just step in and be like, yeah, you suck, dude. You're out.
It's true.
But at the national level, for sure, especially if you borrow in your own currency like the United States does, fucking run it up. Who cares?
It just seems like you're playing Monopoly and you just are stealing from the bank whenever you want.
Yeah, you are. And theoretically, eventually, I guess it could fuck up, but it doesn't.
But if you're borrowing from yourself, you never have to pay yourself back.
Right. The only fear you would ever have is if everybody abandons the dollar as a reserve currency and no one cares about the dollar anymore, and then you start to see hyperinflation.
Okay.
But if that were ever to happen, you have bigger problems, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And plus, I just think the whole thing is used in a bad way because it's never used to say, well, we should have fewer troops. We should buy fewer aircraft carriers. Like, it's never used for that.
No, of course not.
Or we should tax the rich more. It's never used for that. So.
Yeah, it's true. So another thing I want to talk about in terms of economics, they have something called the People's Resource Mapping Program.
Okay.
So this is a program to basically look more at sustainability. So they're looking at things like preventing erosion, and because importing crops is so expensive, they looked at okay, can our local rice paddies, we can section off an area that's for food crops, regular staples, So basically having more local food involved, focusing on repair shops instead of just constantly producing new goods, looking at how can we make things last longer.
That's
huge.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I love this because it so ties together the fact that when you focus on having a higher GDP, like a lot of people do, you are going to get more pollution. And if you throw that out of the equation, wow, it's actually good for people and the earth. Cool.
Yes, because it's great for businesses. It's great for Whirlpool when your fucking washer breaks down because it's just the computer chip thing. You have to throw the whole thing out and get a new one or whatever, right? It's great for whenever, something craps out in your car because that's computerized too and you got to get something new on that.
Dude, my fucking Prius battery is on the outs and it's so expensive to replace. I'm just going to get a new fucking car.
Planned obsolescence is great for capitalism, but it's not great for people. These repair shops and it's not great for the environment either. Like you were saying, it's sustainability. It's great for the environment. It's also great for people who can save money by doing that,
Yeah. Hell
it's awesome.
So this brings me to the last section. You remember in that original Kerala model, the third section of that was political participation. Mm-hmm. So this state has the highest newspaper consumption per capita in India. Probably has a lot to do with that high literacy rate.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I was reading this article. This guy was staying there for I think it was a week or something. This was in the 90s. And he's strikes are so common here. I was just walking around and I was reading in the newspaper about 2 strikes tomorrow. And someone was talking about that there's a strike today. So don't take this bus. And there's just a million strikes all the time. And it's just normal.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So that's awesome.
I mean, was he framing that like, damn, there's all these strikes, I can't get around? Or was it just like, no, this is cool?
No, I think he was framing it as like, this is interesting, and like, these people know that they have power, I think. I mean, that's how I chose to write it, but maybe that was just my little lefty lens.
Yeah, no, that's awesome though.
Yeah, it seems to like there's a real culture of like talking about politics. Like that's just kind of what you do there. And like I think that's really interesting because here like we are so trained like that's rude. I think less now, but now's a different time. But
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain that. But we were brought up to think that it was rude to talk about politics.
Yeah, well, okay, because and it's because what they're talking about when they're talking about politics or political things, they're talking about political issues.
Mm-hmm.
Political issues that have more solutions than which team do I root for to fix this. Right? Because what their solutions they're reaching for is let me take to the streets and strike, you know? Like,
yeah.
they have so much, it is actually directly, tangibly related to their lives rather than something they watch on TV and root for.
Yeah. It's like, it's material. Like,
Yeah.
geez. That word keeps coming back. So I also want to go back to our listener email. Basically, they're talking about how, you know, there is a lot of nationalism right now in India and a lot of like anti-Muslim sentiment. And that just really doesn't seem to have taken hold in Kerala as far as they can tell.
Okay.
So like, that's just awesome. It just sounds like a great place.
It's because of that secular tradition you were talking about, right?
I would assume so. Yeah.
Governing from kind of a non-sectarian place for that. Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah. And you know, this isn't like a wealthy place or a well-off place. Like they've been hit by floods, a Nipah virus outbreak, and now obviously Corona, and they're still hanging in there, you know, like it's very much for the people.
That's awesome.
So that's all I got. What do you think about this place? Where do you rate it?
You know, right now, because it's actually been a while since I've visited my island, so it's probably actually rated above my Animal Crossing island in terms of places I would want to be.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean, it's cool sounding. It does sound like I would take like a material hit. I mean, I'm going to be like more broke if I live there. Mm-hmm. But I love what you were talking about in terms of the kind of political atmosphere of having that sense that you have agency. Mm-hmm. You know, that sense of kind of community in terms of not only not having as much religious strife, but also having more gender equality and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it does sound like it's really it's a really quite different region of India.
Yeah. I keep thinking about that relation between the political participation and these like initiatives, and just like I keep thinking about how that only works because they took care of their people and their people were able to be like, okay, now can you do this for me? And like, it's just like this really, it's a good like cycle, you know?
Yeah. Making people aware that they can do that through their government too, you know, like it's the government's there to fix problems. Whereas we kind of have the opposite ethos here of like, you know, I think it was Reagan who famously said that, you know, the scariest words in the English language are I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I don't know. That's just like completely the opposite view that they're taking there. And it's clearly, you know, it's got a whole model named after it. It's clearly doing something right.
Yeah. I don't know. I just like kind of had my mind blown by the whole, like, let's just not worry about GDP. Like that's crazy. Just be like, that's fine.
Yeah. That, I don't know. So there's kind of a balance though, because when you see this kind of with the Soviets, you see this kind of with the Communist Party of China, you see this in different socialist states. This happens differently timeline-wise, but you go from like this kind of initial radicalism of their revolution to, oh shit, we're running out of stuff. We need to, like in Russia, they'll introduce the new economic policy and kind of inject a little capitalism. In China, they do socialism with Chinese characteristics to kind of boost the economy up to have some sort of economic like base to build things off of. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you'll see that kind of tension. It's not, I guess I don't know if we should encourage people to be like, fuck GDP, who cares? because you do need to materially provide for people. You have to have something to do it with. It helps to be a state because you can just get that stuff from the national government. But
that's what I was going to say is I think that's a big factor is that they have that support from the state. And also the rest of the state, until recently, was fairly socialist. Mm-hmm. So I think that was huge.
Yeah. Not to say, I don't know. I definitely think that we should take the lesson that GDP is not what we should be trying to improve necessarily, at all costs. That's definitely not helpful at all.
Well, I think what's funny is that, like, if you improve these things, I bet your fucking GDP is going to improve. Like, because guess what? You'll have more alive people to, like, do shit.
Oh, if we improve these things, definitely, because in the United States, we've got more than enough. We got too much GDP to know what to do with. But where does it go? It doesn't go to any of these things. We are already to the point where we can take that GDP and put it to use of the people. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to worry about that. I mean, even if we took a big trim off of the GDP, like we could still, if we took a chunk of that and we're like, here, let's do free college, let's do free healthcare, let's do all this stuff. We would still
so fucking much.
Yeah. So we're not in the position where we have to worry about, but we need to make sure to grow we've been fucking growing the GDP so
That's
much.
That's all we do.
But for no use of, for regular people.
Yeah. All that GDP just goes to people's like fourth homes or whatever.
Yeah. It goes to making sure you can get a third job that also doesn't pay enough.
But yeah, and I also keep thinking about that like Indira Gandhi quote of just like, we're just trying to get rid of poverty. Like, like if that's what socialism is, and they're like, fine, I guess.
Yeah, let's do that. Call me a socialist. It's okay.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's awesome.
So yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I particularly loved like all the stats on just like how, I don't know, just like taking care of their fucking people and like the thing about them writing into their government to demand roads and hospitals as soon as they became literate. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, we're now, like, I had to request a street light, and it took me so long to figure out how to do that. I was like, I don't know. Maybe I just will give up. So.
I wouldn't know how to do that either. I would just start Googling.
Yeah, I did. I eventually got it. So
yeah.
I think they're putting in a light. So I made change in my community.
There you go.
It's too dark in my neighborhood.
Action. Yeah, I love the stats, dude. You got wonky on it.
Thank you.
You'll have to apply to Vox.
Oh no, I don't want to. Don't make me. Math is hard. I can't be a wonk if I don't know what a deficit is. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Plus, you would be kicked off the podcast if you were.
That's true.
Gonna go be one of the Johns on the.
I can't do it. Did you know, listeners? You get to hear this great juicy tidbit. I think I've already told Grady this for a very long time, like too long, probably several years. I thought Jon Favreau was Jon Favreau, the director. I thought they were the same person.
Yes, I remember you telling me that.
Oh my God. I was like, I love his movies though. He seems so cool and chef. Why is he being such an asshole?
He's a neoliberal deep down.
I mean, probably the actor is too. I don't know.
If you're not and you're listening, feel free to contact
Jon
us.
Favreau, if you're a comrade,
we'll have you on, man. You can, yeah.
Chef is like, no lie, probably my favorite movie. It's either first or second. King's Speech is up there, but we watch it all the time. All right. That was my presentation. Did I get a good grade? That's what I need to know.
Well, according to the rubric here, I would say that you have demonstrated mastery in all of the criteria.
Hell yeah.
So that gets you like 100 points. I always make mine to total 100 because it's easiest for me.
Oh, yeah. Do people do it differently?
Yeah, some people do like a 1 to 4, but then they have to, once you add up that, then you have to convert that into points. So it's like,
yeah, just do it by 100.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, that's all I need. I'm a type A person, which means I need an A for a grade.
You got an A, you got a gold star.
Fuck yeah.
You got a red star because this was about communism.
Validation. That's what I need. I do want to, again, say thank you to Adarsh for writing to us about this place. It was super cool to learn about.
Yeah. And even the small bit that I was doing just about the kind of independence movement and like how India and Pakistan and everything got their independence, like that was interesting too. Not a part of history that I had delved too much into. And yeah, you did a great job in terms of investigating the workings of the socialist and communist movement there.
Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Literal bro. All right, what do we want to do next time?
Next time, I'm thinking we do a movie night.
Hell yeah. Take it sleazy.
Yeah, and since it's getting kind of closer to wintry weather.
Not here, but everywhere else.
Not here, but who knows what by the time it releases, maybe we'll...
No, I feel like we only ever get snow here like in February or something, or January.
Yeah, it could be. But for some of our listeners, you know, we got Iowans. We have
That's true.
People from all over. Maybe they'll be experiencing...
Boston. We have a Boston.
Yeah. So yeah, there's plenty of possibilities there. Brooklyn, I think.
Yeah, we got a Brooklynite.
For some good cold weather, we're going to be watching a movie that centers on a world that has a lot of cold weather because there's been massive climate change and stuff.
Oh, shit.
And all around this world is speeding a train upon which some people live in a pretty unique situation. We're going to watch Snowpiercer.
Okay. I know nothing about this.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty explicitly leftist in terms of its messages, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's like, I guess it's kind of sci-fi sort of because it's dystopian, sort of futuristic, but it's not like super advanced technology because the only advanced technology is this train that goes around the world.
Okay. World train.
Yeah. And besides that, it's just like dystopian, you know.
Okay. Sounds great. For our listeners, at least US-based ones, where can they watch this? Also, I need to know that. How can I stumble upstairs and watch this movie?
You can watch it on Netflix. It's on Netflix.
Nice.
You can pirate it.
You can also pirate it.
If you're feeling like you're worried about COINTELPRO breaking down your door and, you know, the CIA goons coming in.
It's too late for me, man.
You can buy it on YouTube, iTunes, Vudu, Amazon Prime Video. Cool. You can watch it for free on Pluto TV. I'm sure that's some sort of subscription trial thing, but
I'm sure it is.
It's just what Google told me. So all of those are options. Again, you could also pirate it if you want. And then after you like it, you buy it, you know. Hey.
Yeah, it's like a test.
Yeah. Don't commit crimes though, kids.
Yeah, crimes are bad or whatever. This is by the same guy that did Parasite though, so I feel like I should pay him. Yeah,
I mean, you can. I would. It's on Netflix, so I'm getting it that way.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
But
yeah.
I would buy it if I had to because it was, now that I've seen it, is a good movie, so.
Okay.
I recommend.
Good. Nice. I'm excited.
All right, so that's what we're covering next week. We'll do a little movie club.
Nice. That'll be good. Get a little cozy. So in the meantime, you can find us online, the big internet. You can find us on Instagram at teachmecommunism, Twitter at teachcommunism. If you want to send us an email to give us an episode topic suggestion for movie night, or just sprinkle us with gentle compliments, then you can do that at teachmecommunism@gmail.com. If you want to give us compliments in a more public forum, then you can give us a review on Apple Podcasts. That is a great way for people to find the shows. You can even rate the show too. I am even willing to do that, even though we are at exactly 69 ratings, which is the funny sex number. I am willing to forego that number if we get more ratings. So. Yeah,
it's a sacrifice we're willing to make. It's a hard one, of course, but
all we have to do is just get straight to 420, though. We just need 300 more.
That's easily done, right? It happens exponentially, I think, is how reviews work.
Sure. So yeah, go rate and review, por favor. Patreon, we have a Patreon. Patreon.com/teachmecommunism. For $5 a month, you can become a star student, which means you get access to our notes for each episode. So this week you'll be getting my notes, and you get to see how stupid my notes are. And I write a lot of notes to myself. Like, there's lots of lols and stuff like that.
Nice.
We are also on YouTube, if that's your preferred method for podcast listening. So search us there if that's your thing. Or if you know someone who does not listen to podcasts unless they're on YouTube, then you can send them our YouTube.
We have some subscribers on YouTube, so it's a thing.
It's a thing.
People do that.
We sound so old, like, a thing.
Well, thanks again for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you for listening to it and researching other shit for me.
And thank you, listener, for tuning in this time.
Yeah, we love you guys.
Yeah, you guys are great. And you can always get more of us. Check out that back catalog. It's not a ton, but it's there.
It's there. And you can share it with your friends and then talk to your friends about it. And then that's like even more content.
That's true. And that's technically praxis because you're spreading the word.
See, it counts. You get to be a leftist.
All right. There you go, guys. Tune in next week for another episode of Teach Me Communism, where the class struggle is always in session.
Bye.
Bye, guys.